All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So it's week one, Jets, Bills, insanely, highly anticipated matchup. I mean, AFC East, two big dogs in the AFC. I cannot wait for it. Monday Night Football, whole world's going to be watching. I'm joined by my buddy Akeem from Built in Buffalo. What's good, dude?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, my buddy? Hey, Rich, Akeem Richens, Bills in Buffalo. Hey, bro, this is an exciting time. Monday Night Football, first game of the season, under the lights, AFC East division rival, and the way y'all look this year is very impressive. I'm very excited to see this first game Monday night.
It's cool. It's cool hearing you say that as a Bills fan. You know, I know it's whenever you're talking about like rival teams, it's hard to kind of give props.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, But dude, real quick before we jump into the preview, one thing I
Yep.
really wanted to get your take on is this, I guess, narrative that I've seen a lot, whether it's like on social media, whether it's, on
Mm-hmm.
like the national sports media outlets. It's that the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl window is closed.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't really agree with that. I don't know really where it stems from. I don't know if it's like the Stephon Diggs thing. Where
Mm-hmm.
do you stand on that when people, because I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Right,
Like for
right.
the Chiefs, it's open. For the Bengals, it's open. But for the
Mhm.
Bills, great defense, star quarterback, it's for whatever reason closed. What do you make of that?
I don't think the window is closed at all for the Buffalo Bills, and two reasons why. One is the quarterback, right? Josh Allen. Josh Allen is one of the, in my opinion, best quarterbacks in the National Football League. He has above average traits, and I think once you have a guy that can lead your franchise for a decade plus, that window is never open, never closed, right? But it's the combination of the front office and the organization is why that window isn't closed, because the Rams have a good quarterback as well in Matthew Stafford, but that organization, the direction they decided to take, they mortgaged a lot of their future. They gave up a lot of their draft picks. So they was in that win now mode to understand that they might be a bad team later. And the Buffalo Bills didn't mortgage that future with their draft capital. They still believe in signing and developing and re-signing their own. They don't believe in extending out and giving out a bunch of draft picks and spending a bunch of money. So I think the combination of the quarterback and the combination of the front office and Brandon Beane and that Buffalo Bills organization is why that window is not closed for the Buffalo Bills. They do things the right way.
Yeah, dude, I 100%. I hate to say it as a Jet fan, but I 100% agree with you. Like
Mhm.
Buffalo is not. First of all, like there's like I feel like there is like this notion that Buffalo sits on their hands. They're not really, making that push for that star player, kind of like the Jets do with Aaron Rodgers, or even like
Right,
Miami too, to a certain degree,
right.
with like all the big names that they're getting.
Mhm,
But like Buffalo is still pretty aggressive, in my opinion.
mhm,
Like this offseason, I mean, I
mhm,
was looking at the acquisitions like Puna Ford.
mhm.
They re-signed Jordan Poyer, which I thought was huge. I didn't think he was going to be back.
Right, right,
Um, Drafting Dalton Kincaid, like I
right.
think Buffalo, man, like I'm not going to sit here and just sweep them under the rug and just say, oh yeah, Buffalo, they haven't been able to get it done. They're the window's closed, if you will. Like great defense, great quarterback. They have some
Mhm.
weapons, and yeah, they got young building blocks too, which is pretty exciting for you guys. One
Most
thing that
definitely.
Yeah, dude. One thing that I feel like is pretty interesting. So, like when I'm looking at Buffalo's defense,
Mhm,
obviously they have tons of players. They got depth,
mhm,
but they got a new play caller in Sean
mhm.
McDermott, right?
Yes,
No more Leslie Frazier. Some
yes.
people are kind of saying that that's a bad thing. Some people are saying that's a good thing. I'm
Mhm,
kind of in the mindset of, just from like a outsider's perspective, like this is going to be Sean McDermott's defense. Like
mhm, mhm,
it has been, right?
mhm,
But like he's calling the plays, like he's going to put his name on it.
mhm.
This is what got him the job in Buffalo in the first place. What are you kind of expecting from the defense? Like no more Tremaine Edmonds, but
Mhm.
more so McDermott calling the plays, running the show.
And first of all, I like the move. I always thought that Sean McDermott should have been calling plays when he first got hired to the Buffalo Bills. Do what got you hired. Is he a defensive guy? Yes. But the reason he was hired to the Buffalo Bills is because he had a top 10 defense 4 out the last 6 years with the Carolina Panthers before he transitioned over to the Buffalo Bills. So I always felt that coaches should do what got them hired, right? Offensive coaches do it all the time. Sean McVay, he became a head coach for the Rams.
Yeah.
Now he's doing what got him hired. Kyle Shanahan, for the San Francisco 49ers, he's doing what got him hired. So now I'm a big proponent and a big fan of Sean McDermott taking over the plays. I expect a more aggressive attacking style defense as opposed to what Leslie Frazier brought to the table for the Buffalo Bills with his tenure. I think he did a fabulous job, but at the same time, I think it was a lot of predictable cover 3 zone defenses where offenses was able to notice it pre-snap, and they was able to dink and dunk their way down the field. And Leslie Frazier, in my opinion, kind of allowed that. Right now, with Sean McDermott transition over to him, he's going to be more aggressive. He's going to be more attacking style. There might be blitzes coming from linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks. If the Buffalo Bills defensive line can't get there with their front four, probably like you guys can, right? So there's going to be more exotic looks within that Sean McDermott scheme in that defense, and that's something that we're excited for.
Yeah, no, that's sick, man. One thing too that, like, just looking at how the Bills have performed, right? I think it's the last 3 seasons that they've won the division back to back to back. Great roster, great management, right, from a front office perspective, great coaching staff. What's the one Achilles heel? Like what's the chink in the armor for the Bills that the Jets could possibly like exploit in your eyes on Monday night?
With the Buffalo Bills, my one gripe about this team is when we face certain teams like Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens or Philadelphia Eagles team with a very physical team in the trenches. That's where I think the Buffalo Bills struggle in the trenches on both the defensive side and the offensive side of the ball, especially the offensive side of the ball, considering the matchup on Monday night, right? We have Quinnen Williams and JFN, Jonathan Franklin Myers, and Bryce Huff is always getting to the quarterback. His get off is ridiculous. Jermaine Johnson looked like he's ready to take the next step. Michael Clemens is a beast. Al Woods, I was a big fan of from the Seattle Seahawks. And looking through certain notes and looking through certain social media platforms, you see Spencer Brown getting exposed, right, by JFN. Yep. So he's one of the major liabilities that I'm concerned with along that offensive front. But as a whole, that's what I'm concerned with, the battle in the trenches, especially with our offensive line. Our good players, our Mitch Morse, our Deion Dawkins, they have to be good players that night. And we have to do a good job in helping and protecting guys like a Spencer Brown and even our rookie guard from Florida, the 6'5", 350-pound Osiris Torrance.
Is Torrance going to be starting, by the way?
Yes, he's going to be starting Monday night, and that's going to be a very interesting matchup between him and Quinnen Williams and certain guys you got in the trenches yourself.
Yeah, dude, because I'm from Florida. I watched a lot of Torrance, man. Like, he was a beast, man. Like, he was actually one of the guys that I wanted the Jets to draft when there was like uncertainty about AVT moving over to tackle, like permanently. Because he's obviously like the team's right guard. He's great at it, but he can play like multiple different positions. So I was thinking like, all right, well, if the Jets are opting to move Vera Tucker to tackle, we got a hole at right guard. I felt like Torrance was a great spot. I was shocked that he fell to round 2.
I was too. I was too. And I want to ask you a question. I'm glad that you brought this up because maybe you could give me some tidbits and some insights on your team. I've heard a lot about the defensive line, and obviously there's a lot of talk now about the defensive. That defensive unit can be probably historic, right? But I haven't heard too much about Lincoln Tomlinson in that old line. Can you give me a little update on that?
So, like right now, okay, so it's interesting because right now, when we're just almost like Madden perspective, when we're just looking at names on paper, the starting 5, we're pretty good, right? Dwayne Brown at left tackle, Lincoln Tomlinson at left guard. Hopefully he looks a little bit better than his first season with the Jets last year. Connor McGovern at center, AVT at right guard, who he's honestly my favorite player on the offensive side of the football. And then right tackle, Mekhi Becton.
Oh, so he's starting?
Yeah, he's going to be starting.
Nice.
The only issue with there's 2 kind of main issues with the offensive line. Number one, they haven't had a ton of time playing together. Dwayne Brown missed pretty much the entire training camp due to a shoulder injury that he was coming back from. Mekhi Becton was kind of bouncing around left side, or left tackle, right tackle. Connor McGovern was sharing snaps at center for a portion with Joe Tittman, who's a rookie second rounder. So there was a lot of moving parts in the offensive line. So overall, like from an experience standpoint, chemistry standpoint, the starting five, which is overall playing time together this offseason specifically, hasn't really been there. So
Okay.
maybe Buffalo, because I know you guys have a ton of depth on
Mhm,
defense with
mhm,
Oliver and Rousseau and all these different guys.
mhm.
Maybe you guys can exploit that.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
do think if the starting five is out there and, from start to finish,
Mhm,
we shouldn't have that many problems.
mhm,
The problem is literally if one guy gets hurt, the depth with the O line, especially a tackle, is just it's just not really there. We have Max Mitchell and Billy Turner. Both guys were kind of up and down throughout camp, but nobody really separated themselves from the pack. The right tackle job was wide open for somebody to go out and snag it.
mhm,
Nobody did. Becton just kind of moved over, I believe, in the last 2 weeks. Like right before that third preseason game against the Giants, he moved
mhm,
over and looked great against the Giants. So they gave him the
mhm.
job.
Yep.
And I'm pumped to
Nice.
see I'm pumped to see what Becton can do at right tackle. But overall, I would say the depth is, a major issue.
Awesome. Awesome insight. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So one thing, just from macro perspective, how do you think the
Uh,
two teams match up?
I think that if I'm being a realist, right? If I take my Homer self out the equation, me being an obvious
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills fan,
Yeah.
I think honestly, I think the Jets match up really well against the Bills. Like I said, I think that the ballot in the trenches is something that the Bills struggle with more physical teams, and I think that is something that the Jets can possibly exploit, especially with our tackles, and especially if you get off of Bryce Huff and the surgence of a guy like Jermaine Johnson. So that could be problematic for the Buffalo Bills in the trenches. Um, Other than that, I think we have to do things to exploit the Jets on defense. We know that they have the pass rush. So what can we do with that pass rush? We have to be able to use our check down, and Josh Allen's going to have to be able to throw that ball and rely on James Cook a little bit. And that's something that he hasn't done in years past. He just, for whatever reason, he doesn't like using the check down and going to his running backs. Well, when you draft a guy like James Cook, he wasn't drafted to run in between the tackles. He was drafted because of his receiving prowess coming out the backfield. And now Josh Allen, in my opinion, it will be wise for him to utilize that, especially with the corners you have on the outside. Uh, going further, it's more about matchups with the Buffalo Bills. What can we possibly exploit? And I named one matchup with the running backs and another one. And when I say the matchups that we can exploit, it's not that the New York Jets have a weakness, right? It's just that these are our opinions on what we feel are the weakest positions on
For
the
sure.
Jets, you know? So we drafted Dalton Kincaid for a reason, and we have Dawson Knox. So we want to be able to exploit the seams a little bit. We want to be able to put the linebackers and safeties. We know C.J. Mosley is an All-Pro guy. He was named team captain, but we want to get him out in space and get him out in coverage. We know you have an impressive guy named is it Tony Adams at safety, the undrafted kid?
Yeah, so he's undrafted. Just what was insane about that was it was literally almost from the jump he was named the starter. Like not
Mm,
like technically like Solid didn't come out and say like he's the guy, but
mhm.
literally from the Hall of Fame game, he didn't dress and he didn't
Right.
play pretty much the entire preseason. We brought in Adrian Amos. We already have
Hmm.
Jordan Whitehead on the roster. And we were kind of looking at free safety, like, do the Jets need to go out and sign a player, potentially like, trade for somebody, pick somebody up off of waivers. But
Mm,
Adams like won the job at camp. Supposedly he's like a coach's favorite
hmm.
going back to last year, saw a little bit of experience. So I'm excited to see. I mean, to not play somebody, not to not play an undrafted free agent who's only been in the
Very
league for
interesting.
1 year
Hmm.
for multiple preseason games. Like I think that says something about the like really how valuable he is to the defense. But really, like as fans here, we haven't seen. It's not like we have this like massive sample size. So on one hand, it's just like we don't really 100% know from the outside,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
from what the Jets are telling us, like he's going to be like legit a legit threat back there.
And I found that very interesting. Like you said, he's an undrafted kid that's only been in the league 1 year and he hasn't dressed. And in my opinion, that is something that the Buffalo Bills should look to exploit.
Hmm.
Obviously we're not experts, obvious, but that is a very interesting thing to do for Robert Saleh with an undrafted kid. So we'll see what happens with that. But I do think he is a very impressive kid. He has that sideline to sideline speed. So we'll see what happens there. But that's a matchup uh, that, in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills should exploit offensively. The linebackers and safeties must be exploited because y'all are very good along the defensive front, and we all know what your cornerbacks are about.
For sure, for sure. I'm kind of worried about Josh Allen extending plays. Like that's
Mhm,
something that the Jets they haven't really had like a ton of success with in the past, like shutting down mobile quarterbacks.
mhm,
When they get outside the pocket and they're moving around, picking up first downs with their legs,
mhm,
extending plays, maybe like we'll shake somebody and then find that open guy just kind of sitting in zone coverage, just in the middle of the field. That's happened a lot over the past, really since Salah took over.
mhm.
And with Josh Allen, like that's kind of his bread and butter. So yeah,
Most
but
de-
dude,
mo- Go ahead,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, most definitely, and that's something you're absolutely right about. And it's funny you said that. We're trying to avoid some of that this year, right? We want to keep Josh Allen more upright. We want to keep
Yeah,
him in the pocket so
yeah,
he can deliver the football. We want to be able to protect Josh Allen more as opposed to him playing superhero ball all the time for the Bills.
yeah. No, that makes total sense.
Mhm,
I know a lot of people are talking about like, oh, you know, how long can Josh Allen play this style of football, like trucking over,
mhm,
linebackers and stuff like that, hurling people, taking these hits, not going out of bounds. But no, I'm, just taking my Jet, hat off for a second. Like this dude,
yeah,
he's so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch. My brother's
definitely.
actually a Bills fan. He's going to be coming over for the game, so
Oh, that should be nice. That
yeah,
should be nice.
it's gonna be crazy. But bro, I appreciate you hopping on, man, taking the time.
Man, I really appreciate you having me on, man. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm a big fan of your channel. Keep doing your thing, man. And we definitely going to do this again. Maybe for the next game, you could come on my platform and we can have a preview.
Yeah, dude, 100%, 100%, always down. And then for everybody watching, all of the links are listed down below in the description box: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Definitely recommend checking it out. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.